My name is Brent Metcalf, and I'm from Davison, Michigan. I was recruited to go to Virginia Tech. So I went to Virginia Tech right out of high school. The head coach there took the head job at the University of Iowa. So I followed him over there, and I wrestled at Iowa, where I was a 3-time All-American, and I won 2 national titles. I was pretty good early on. I think that first year I was like 3rd in the state. As we get deeper into this, we could talk more about it. But ironically, I walked into a club that had, turned out to be 2 or 3 NCAA champions came out of there. He was selling us some good goods because his philosophy and just about everything that I stand for was rooted in what I learned through him, So that's why you hear his name a lot, because that was the first 10 years of my upbringing in the sport of wrestling before all. Really solid program that he put us through. And, I can remember all the different drills and stuff that we did. And, as I reflect back, I was like, well, that would be the stuff that I would want my young kids doing. Those are the basics, just the basics of the sport of wrestling. And we just repped it over and over and over. We got really good at, just simple stuff. Single leg, high crotch, double leg, and then he did like a sit-out series, which, especially for little kids, is really effective. I would say that we were definitely raised to be hard-working kids. And I don't mean we weren't farm kids, so not in that manner. But just in the everyday manner, raised like, hey, if you want something done, you go do it yourself. If you start something, you finish it. That was kind of how we were raised. But the focus, at least what was taught to me and what was communicated by coaches, was never to be undefeated. So I ended up being undefeated all through high school, 228-0. And I think it helped a lot that wasn't the focus. In fact, the opposite was true. A lot of times it seemed like between my parents and myself and my coaches, it was like, hey, let's go try to lose. Not try to lose, but compete against the best and see where we're really at. Because the reality of our room at that time was that it was a bunch of killers.
Okay.
And we were all trying to take each other's throat out. If you step your foot in front of me, you're trying to take me out. So I'm going to take you out, It's hard as an athlete at the time because you're so narrowed in. You're not paying attention to what's going on. You're not paying attention, so a coach outside looking in. But I would say probably because I had a lot of forfeits and stuff like that. Or, I'd have kids weigh in and then their coach would be like, hey, I didn't want you to hurt him, so we're not wrestling it. And then for me, as a kid, I was always kind of like, hey, I want to get every trophy possible. I want everything possible. So you talked about Fargo. I want as many stop signs as I can possibly get. It was a philosophy. It was a way of wrestling. It was a mindset. It was like a purity to the sport of wrestling, But yeah, ironically, I tell people all the time, when I was a kid, I didn't know nothing about Iowa wrestling. I didn't know anything about Dan Gable. All I knew was these Brands brothers, and I watched them wrestle a bunch, and then my coach said, hey, watch this. This is what they believe. This is how they train. This is how they compete. This is their philosophy. This is what we follow. But as far as the practices went, no different than what I was used to be honest. They were hard, and they're hard because of the level of the opponent in front of you. Honestly, I tell Roy all the time, I'm like, man, the expectation, again, a lot of it has to do with the expectation, right? The amount of output, right? So even through high school, what was expected of us, the amount of energy. And when I say output, if I wrestle a guy and we wrestle for 10 minutes and I score 2 takedowns, that ain't enough. That's not enough output. The expectation was the same, which is when you compete, you put it all out there. You go and you attempt a lot of offense. It's more about a pace. So me walking in there was like going home, walking into what I was just used to. Right? It was harder because the guys are better, but it definitely wasn't anything crazy because it's what I was raised on. It was the expectation I was raised on, which is, your job is to go in there and to score so many points that this guy wants to quit and walk out of practice. I had the mentality of like, hey, new room, new people to take out so I can be the man. Last thing I remember from wrestling with Tom is what felt like he gave me the first couple takedowns, and he was just kind of hand fighting with me and hanging on my hands and my arms. I remember at like some point, like I couldn't pick my arms up anymore, and then he started hitting leg attacks.
Really?
Like right at that point where like I couldn't move my arms, I was like, geez, my arms are so tired. Then he started hitting leg attacks, and it was good to feel that because I'm like, like that's it. So the hand fighting is right, like I'm making you work, and now you wonder why offense works so well, right? It's because I've kind of worn you out, right? It's because I'm making you resist this. So I would go up to co-college, they had some sort of mat, open mat or something that I would just wrestle with. And the first time I went up, Mark Ironside was there. And I had known the name kinda, and he was like, hey, let's wrestle. And he beat the living crap out of me. Like, he pummeled me, right? So this would have been, 2 years before I ever won a national title. So he beat me up, and afterward, because I was with all those other guys that transferred with me, they later on said that Mark went up to him and was like, hey, like I thought that this kid was supposed to be good. Like you guys are all excited about this Metcalf kid. He sucks, man.
Wow.
Where Mark was really good at like tug. So it was like, a dog, it's got a hold of your hand and it's just yanking on you. So you're constantly pulling it back. Right, wrong, or different, like I came in like, hey, I'm the man, like I'm gonna hold myself to that standard, right? So I kind of operated like I was the man, And again, who am I to think that I can just come in and do that? But there's a standard and an expectation, and at some point it was like the wrestlers carried that standard and expectation, right? And to me, that's what made us great then and made the University of Iowa when we were there, was we all held each other that standard. The coaches are, steering that ship too, but, I've told a lot of people a lot of times, the best thing that happened would be like, after a dual meet, the coaches didn't have to go up to one of the athletes and say, hey man, you only won by a point, or you were stalling. Because that night in our house where we all lived together, I would be saying it. Sure. I'd be like, dude, what the heck? You were stalling for the last 2 minutes of that match, right? Or vice versa. Or they'd be dogging me, or we'd be dogging each other. And it goes back to the same thing, like where you had the who's going to get the most pins and stuff like that. Internally, the team was bought in and they were pushing each other. And to me, that is the best influence you can have, is when you've got that team, like essentially saying what the coach wants to say, right? So when Tom took the job, he hired Gable as his assistant for that first year, just to start the whole thing off, I guess, He was a bit around. Probably my best stuff that I've got from Gable is everything after that year. Because ironically, he's obviously been around the program for a lot of years. And then ironically, he lives like just a few doors down from where my wife's family lived there in Iowa City. Mm-hmm. So I kind of saw him a lot. Even sometimes when I head home, when I go visit the family over holidays, I'll bump into him, Yeah, some of the best times or things with Gable would be kind of those away from the mat things. And again, a lot of it's just up my alley, but Dan is probably a whole nother level than me, Mm-hmm. Certainly, the minute you think you're doing something good, at least how he approached me, it was always he was kind of a funny old guy, Mm-hmm. But he'd be like, was that good enough? Did you do good enough? Or is there some more you could do? Or so I don't know. I appreciate the way he kind of challenged me. The minute you think, hey, I've got things going, and he just reminded you, which is again how I'm kind of wired, reminded you like, hey, like there's more levels out there. Like I think you got more to it, or I think you can do more. Fortunately, again, I wrestled so darn hard, the guy couldn't even barely walk the next match and lost him, and that means you're out, right? Because that guy has to make the finals, right? But I remember looking at a quarter bracket, so I was kind of bummed and thinking, like, man, I made the World Championships and I can't even place like I'm not even close to where I think I am. And in that quarter bracket was the Olympic champ, the world champ, and I think the world silver medalist, right? And then the Cuban. So there's 4 of them. He beat them all. He beat them all, and then he got to the semis, and he threw the match against the Russian. Like, I love the mental aspect of wrestling. I love, like, it's so much deeper to me than just going out and doing moves. It's a very personal thing. It's a thing that, you know, like Gable's quote, like, you know, once you've done this, like, once you put yourself through all of this, like, anything's possible. Like, nothing is hard. And I like to try to communicate that and try to get guys to understand that. So I've always been, I don't know, I use the word purist. Like, I am a wrestling purist as much as it can be. About wrestling the right way, doing it the hard way, and having a lot of pride in that. I knew I wanted to be Division I because, like, again, the way that I operate, like, I want to be with guys that want to be great, right? And that want to be great at the highest level, right? Like, I'm probably too high strung for the high school level. By that, I mean, like, it's just hard for me to be like, what do you mean you don't want to be the greatest? My advice would be to learn as much as you can and have fun, you know, and have fun with it. And by that, I mean, it's not going to be fun all the time, but you get to choose how you think about things. So what I mean by that is if your mindset is like, oh, I have to go do this practice today, maybe it's not for you. But if it's, hey, I get to do this, I get an opportunity today to really push myself and see, you know, again, I'm a beginner. I've never taken down Johnny in front of me. I get an opportunity every day to try to get that takedown, right? So let's see if today's the day.